Jay Delsing spent 25 years on the PGA Tour and is a lifetime member of the PGA Tour and PGA of America. Now he provides his unique perspective as a golfer and network broadcaster. It's time to go on the range with Jay Delsing.
On the Range is brought to you by Pro-Am Golf.
Good morning, St. Louis. This is Golf with Jay Delsing. I am your host, Jay. I've got John Perlis with me. Brad Barnes is in the studio taking care of us and pushing these buttons and dials. And we formatted the show like a round of golf. The first segment is called On the Range. It's brought to you by Pro-Am Golf. Check us out on our social media outlets. Twitter is at Jay Delsing. Facebook is Golf with Jay Delsing and Jay Delsing Golf. LinkedIn is Jay Delsing. And wow, it's a lot of Jay Delsings. Pearly, Instagram is...
Who knows, baby? Who knows? I'm just ready to get rolling here. Sports are starting to get going a little bit more. We got the radio show going, getting back in the swing of things. Yeah,
absolutely. We want to thank Bob and Kathy Donahue, Painting and Refinishing, for helping to sponsor the show here. They're great people. You need any work. They do high-quality work around your house. Call Bob and Kathy Donahue at Donahue Painting and Refinishing. All right, so this show today, we've got an interview with Michael Bamberger. Michael wrote for Sports Illustrated for, at least 20 years, maybe 25 years, and now he's with golf.com. All right, I want to give a shout-out to the St. Louis Junior Invitational. It's been rescheduled for July 30th through 31st. It's going to be at Norwood Hills. You can reach them at stlgolfjr.com. The tournament will consist of 72 boys and girls, ages 14 to 18. Bob Phillips has this thing called the Shining Light Player Scholarships that are available. So they use GoFundMe pages to help families, underwrite the cost so that their children can come play in this event. Last year they had boys and girls from 6 or 8 different states, and this year I think we've already had entrants from almost 10 different states. So, that's a cool thing for the club. It's a cool thing for golf. And we want to support that any way we can.
Hey, Jay, as another part of your intro, I think it'd be neat, given what's going on in the economy, the world, everything else, that Donahue painting people are been so great for the show. Maybe we can kind of know how they're doing, kind of coming back and getting things ramped up again. So I don't know if you have a chance to touch base with them, but I think that'd be kind of fun to hear how they're doing.
I will do that. I had Bob on the Leading Edge segment, a while back, and I've been in touch with those guys. So yeah, that's a good call, Pearl. I appreciate you bringing that up. All right, so let's jump into the PGA Tour return policy and what this whole thing kind of looks like. First of all, John, this thing has been 2 months in the making, and the PGA Tour has been consulting experts from all over the world, the World Health Organization, the CDC, doctors, and one of the things that was on the table early that I'm so glad that it's going to go down the way it is caddies are going to be allowed to play. They're going to be allowed to be in the competition, and I was really concerned with what that would look like without caddies. Not the look of it, but just what it would do to the players. I just feel like the professional game, the caddies are just a massive part of that.
Absolutely. How would they play without caddies? You talking about all the guys going to carry their own bags?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that would be kind of interesting, too. I wouldn't have a problem with that, but you know where I'm at on this, and this is probably fun to banter back and forth. And I appreciate that we're out there talking to all the experts. They've got to do their due diligence. But I think we kind of know what we know. We know some things and we don't know some things. We're not going to know some things for a heck of a long time. And I just love the fact that they're moving forward. And so I appreciate that. And I love that there's some level of the PGA Tour leading the way of getting things back. I also think it's the easiest sport to kind of get going again, maybe other than like NASCAR and stuff that they're doing. But let's take the precautions that we know are positive, and let's go.
Well, Pearl, we know that golf numbers around the country are booming. I mean, it's one of the things that people are actually being able to do. They can get some exercise. They can get some fresh air. They can get the hell out of their houses. But there's an opportunity here for the game, John. Being the first sport back, not a major sport, not a top 4 sport, but it's still a big, big deal. There are going to be eyeballs on these tournaments and on these, like we had a week or so ago, the Taylor made driving relief challenge and skin game. There are going to be eyes on golf that probably weren't on the game before, John. There's an opportunity here to grow the sport in a very unique way.
No question. It's a unique opportunity. Plus, there's a lot of people like me that really want to find how are things going to get moving back to things we recognize. And so I think, to your point, there's going to be an extra appreciation that this sport is getting things rolling. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, there's also an example, and you hit on it, hit the nail right on the head for me, is that, the tour can be an example of how to do this. Now, there are challenges that the other sports have that the PGA Tour doesn't. The fact that we are on an open-spaced golf course, somewhere between 200 and 400 acres, just makes this thing much easier as opposed to an enclosed stadium like the NBA or the NHL. But it's really an opportunity that I love the fact that the tour is seizing, and I know that the players are itching like crazy to get back.
I certainly hope that they are, and I think, at least my way of thinking, and again, we all see this thing differently, but there's plenty of things that can be done and understood, and especially as close and caring as that player or caddy relationship is, that this thing can be completely safe, and let's just go get them. It's more the production side, Jay, that you're familiar with. I am from playing peon for Ryder Cups and U.S. Opens for NBC golf for quite a few years. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that is tough on some of these things that need to be done as far as keeping social distance and that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of people that go together to produce these things, these events. So even if there's not spectators, just to produce them in ways that we've learned to appreciate the game on TV, that part's, in my opinion, tougher than the player part.
Oh, I think, you know what, John? I think you're 100% right. You know what the easiest part's going to be? Playing the game. The hardest part, first of all, the players and the caddies are going to be pre-tested before they travel. Then once they travel and get to the location, so they get to Fort Worth, they're going to have a location where everybody's got to go in and get tested again. And you're not allowed into any of the club facilities until those tests have come back negative. Now, you are allowed to go practice. You can even go have a practice round on the golf course. But you go from the driving range to the course, to the putting green, into your car. You do not go inside until those tests come back negative. And there's a 3-step process that they're using as well. So there's going to be some of the thermal stuff. So there'll be temperature taking. There's the PCR test, which is normally a 2 to 4 day result, time that it takes to get this thing done. And the tour is looking into specialized labs that are going to be able to turn these tests around in just a couple hours. It's going to make a huge impact. There's also no family allowed. How weird is that, John? You cannot travel with your family. You cannot bring your family. There's no dry cleaning services. If it's also interesting, did you see what happens if a player tests positive, John? He and his caddy immediately removed from the tournament and taken following the local CDC and local guidelines, and will be quarantined somewhere until there's more testing done, and then the tour is going to pay for that player and his caddy to be kind of holed up somewhere until he gets 2 negative tests, in 1 day. So there's
an awful lot of control going on here, which makes my blood boil. But I get it that we have to go to these extremes in order to get everybody comfortable. Some people aren't going to need this type of thing. Some are. So I think the only way you really get a whole field pulled together is that you have to do these things. It makes me crazy thinking about it, but I can see where it has to happen in order to get everybody to say, yeah, I'll come play, because that's what it'll take to make me comfortable. So right. I get it.
Right, and there's also liability issues. There's just massive amounts of issues to be dealt with. Also, we don't want to forget, because the PGA Tour, as we know, is more like the World Tour, there's about 26 players from the PGA Tour that are in Europe right now. And so if they want to compete, they've got to be back in town, already back in the States Pearl, because
Quarantine,
they need a 14-day quarantine period coming from Europe. So there is a lot of bureaucratic, administrative stuff that's going to be done. There's going to be hand sanitizers everywhere. There's going to be gloves. There's going to be masks provided. So we do know that they're taking all the precautions they can to try to get this thing back in order. And I know that the PGA Tour is kind of got slated for the Memorial Tournament the third week of July to be the first event back with some sort of spectators. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
Well, absolutely, and so in Ohio, that state's been doing very well, and I'm hoping, as we all are, that things get more and more clear, and more and more good information out there, so we can all get a little bit more comfortable with what's going on.
Yeah, amen to that. Well, that's going to wrap up the On the Range segment. Don't go anywhere. John and I will be back for the front nine. We got an interview from Michael Bamberger. This is Golf with Jay Delsing.
This is Dan McLaughlin, TV voice of the Cardinals. St. Louis is one of the best sports cities in the country. We also have a tremendous history of supporting professional golf. We're excited to bring professional golf back to St. Louis with the inaugural Ascension Charity Classic, September 28th through October 4th at beautiful Norwood Hills Country Club. Legends like Ernie Els, Fred Couples, Jim Furyk, Steve Stricker, and many more will be in St. Louis. For tickets and sponsorship information, head to AscensionCharityClassic.com. That's AscensionCharityClassic.com.
Are you tired of forking out the big money, all those dollars on golf balls? Well, we finally have an option for you. Let us introduce you to Sniper brand golf balls. This brand new product is a Surlyn-covered ball that is just great to play. It's long off the driver, it's accurate with the irons, and importantly, it's soft around the green. And you know what the best part is? It's just $23.99 for a dozen. That's right, $23.99, and a portion of every sale goes back to a military or law enforcement agency. Find Sniper Brand online at thesniperbrand.com. Plus, you can follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and check out their entire line of golf products on their website, thesniperbrand.com. And don't forget to check out the Sniper Brand logo. You're going to love it.
I want to give a huge shout-out and thank you to Whitmore Country Club for sponsoring my show, Golf with Jay Delsing, again for the second year. When you join out at Whitmore, there's 90 holes of golf. You get access to the Missouri Bluffs, the Links of Dardenne, and the Golf Club of Wentzville, and the cart fees are already included in your membership. There's no food and beverage minimums. There's no assessments. They have a 24-hour fitness center, large pool complex, tennis. Man, they've just got great family-oriented stuff. And if you get over there, you got to go in the golf shop, and you have to say hello to my friend Bummer. Bummer is just a delightful guy that would love to help you and your family with your golf game. He and his staff out there run golf leagues, skins games, members tournaments, couples events are available all year long. If your family is looking for a place where you can hang out, have fun, enjoy good food, golf, sports, just a family-friendly atmosphere, you got to go to Whitmore Country Club. You can reach them at 636-926-9622.
We're all experiencing very trying times right now, but hopefully we can reflect a little bit on the things that matter the most to us, like family and community. At St. Louis Bank, we want to wish you and your family safety and good health. We're a part of this community, and we are all in this together. In such uncertain financial times, you've probably never needed your bank to step up and support you more. We know, we hear you, and we are here for you. Our banking experts are doing everything they can to help. We're offering a skip-a-payment to all consumer accounts for mortgage loans and home equity line of credits. We're offering payment modifications with up to a 6-month deferral. Our commercial and SBA loans will be handled on a case-by-case basis to provide the best relief for each unique situation. We understand that communication and speed are essential during this critical time. Get in touch with your commercial banking officer to take advantage of this program. If you'd like to speak with us, you can call 314-851-6200. We are going to move through this hardship, and we're going to do it together. St. Louis Bank, here for you when you need us today and in brighter days ahead.
Grab your clubs. We're headed to the front nine on Golf with Jay Delsing.
The Front Nine is brought to you by the Ascension Charity Golf Classic.
Welcome back. This is Golf with Jay Delsing. I'm your host, Jay. I've got Pearlie with me. Brad Barnes is in the room with us as well. And we got to give a shout-out to our friends at Whitmore Country Club for sponsoring the show. Man, they've got one of the things, the last time I drove up to Whitmore, one of the things that just stuck out in my mind, you may have seen this too when you played, because you played out there since I have, but that place is always full.
Always.
The parking lots, the tennis courts, it's just everybody's having a blast out there.
There's always a buzz, but it's never too crowded.
No.
There's always space to play. You're never feeling rushed, but there's always just a life going on.
Yeah, there's some
there.
good energy, and there's 36 holes at Whitmore, and you also get access to Missouri Bluffs, the Links of Dardenne, and the Golf Club of Wentzville. Cart fees are included there, so that's 90 holes of golf you get with this Whitmore membership. No food or beverage minimums and no assessments. There's 3 tennis courts, a 24-hour fitness center, a super huge pool, year-round social calendars. The holiday parties are legendary out there. There's picnics and date nights, live music. You've got to go in and say hi to Bummer in the golf shop. He is the assistant pro there, and he is just a terrific guy. And I promise you, as soon as you walk into the golf shop, you'll know who Bummer is. He is a terrific guy. And ask him how he got his name Bummer. It's a terrific story. He's I think he's the youngest of 9 kids. And those guys run golf leagues and skins games, members tournaments, couples events. They just do a great job. You're looking for a place to take your family, hang out, play some golf, some tennis, great pool, you need to go to Whitmore Country Club. 636-926-9622. All right, let's go.
Wait a second, Jay. I love the Whitmore commercials, and I'm excited about the place. You always talk so highly of it. When am I going to get invited out there?
Is Pearlie talking?
I did hear him. Yeah. Pearlie, I think we should all get around, and then we can finally get those golf balls we were promised. Maybe that's our chance.
Wow, you guys.
Hey, I'll take either the golf balls or playing at Whitmore.
This sounds disgustingly like a beg from my co-host.
We've got nothing else to do. God. We might as well beg.
I'm supposed to be pumping this place up, and I feed off of your enthusiasm for the place. But I figured it'd be helpful if I went out there and played and had a beer, maybe played a little tennis on the side, took a dip. I think that's the way it should go.
Pearlie's looking for it sounds like he wants a spa day.
It sounds nice to me. I mean, if we can get it, why not?
All right. So, we might have to get something like that in the works. Maybe we'll grab you and Randy. The 4 of us will go out there and go terrorize Bummer.
Let's do it. I just saw Bummer 2 weeks ago. He's the nicest guy.
He's great.
He knows everybody. As soon as you walk in, he lights up. Oh, hey, Pete,
how's it going? It's me. What's going on? He's got little 4 and 5 year old kids who walk in and they're all giving him 5, and they're like. He's like, did you hit some balls today? And they're like, nah, I played some tennis. She's like, don't forget about golf. He's
like the Tiger Woods of Whitmore.
I know.
Everybody loves him.
He is fantastic. All right, so we've got this interview with Michael Bamberger. Michael wrote for Sports Illustrated for years and years, over 20 years, and he writes for golf.com now and just does a great job. Caddied on tour. So let's just jump in to this Philadelphia native story. This is Michael Bamberger. Sitting here looking at some of your work, and I also neglected to talk about the play. I'm a baseball junkie, and you wrote a play entitled Bart and Fay about Fay Vincent, Bart Giamatti, and that had a run in Philly in your hometown for about a year, didn't it?
It did run in Philadelphia, not quite that long, only 2 weeks, but that was still a thrill. I got to know Bart. I love baseball as you do, and we came up in baseball, although I didn't play at a real level except for Little League, but I came of age on the '69 New York Mets. I know that means something to you. And then my first job after college was on the Vineyard Gazette on Martha's Vineyard. And my neighbor was Bart Giamatti, who was then the president of Yale, and later became the president of the National League, and then subsequently became the commissioner of baseball, and then again got engulfed in this controversy over whether Pete Rose had bet on the Reds or not. And then Bart, with his deputy Fay Vincent, kicked Pete Rose out of baseball, put him on the ineligible list. for the Hall of Fame as well. And well, he was on Major League Baseball as ineligible, major ineligible for the Hall of Fame technically. And so I wrote a two-man play about Bart's relationship with Faye Vincent. These days, most people know Bart as or they know his son, Paul Giamatti, who's an actor. He's got two other children as well. But yeah, I got to know both those. Well, Faye Vincent to this day is a very close friend of mine, and Bart Giamatti died tragically about 8 or 9 days after he kicked Pete Rose out of baseball.
Yeah, I can still remember that time frame, that short 10-day time frame or so when he made that decision and then passing away. And man, that's something. So Michael, you wrote for Sports Illustrated for years and years. I read your stuff at Golf Magazine every week. You wrote these books, and there is some of the coolest stuff in your books, and I want to just talk about it. And I probably selecting a favorite book is like saying, yeah, this is like my favorite kid. But you've got books, Men in Green, The Green Road Home, To the Linksland, Golfing Life, The Golfing Life. And one of the things I wanted to talk about in The Golfing Life that it still struck me was Bruce Edwards. And Bruce Edwards, as we all know, caddied for years and years for Tom Watson. He actually met Tom in the parking lot of the golf course that I grew up in 1973 when they were playing the St. Louis Classic at Norwood Hills. But Bruce and the ALS story and getting diagnosed, yet still caddying for Tom and I was watching that firsthand. It just seemed surreal, Michael.
Well, that triggers so much for me. Bruce was not a close friend of mine, and yet I could almost say that I loved Bruce as so many did, even if you didn't really know him well, because his spirit was infectious. He loved people. He loved the game. He really loved the tour and the tour life and the hotels and the bars in an appropriate way. I don't mean it in an inappropriate way. He just liked hanging out, and he was easy to be with. And his boss for many years, Tom Watson, is really a tough person and often on edge and prickly. And Bruce was just the opposite in every way. And there's no way to calculate these things, but what Bruce did for Tom Watson's career is really it's incalculable. And you may remember this, Jay, but at that I'm sure you will remember it, at that U.S. Open at Olympia Fields that Furyk won. Do you recall what year that was?
Oh my gosh, I don't recall what year it was.
Early, yeah, but whatever year that. Well, I'll just look it up right here while we're talking. But anyway, the year that let's just look it up here so we have it.
I do remember that was Jim Furyk's year winning the major and winning the U.S. Open.
Yeah, 2003. Okay.
So
Tom Watson played in the 2003 U.S. Open at Olympia Fields, Chicago. It's the one that Jim Furyk won. And Bruce, deep into the throes of ALS, was caddying for him. And Watson shot a first-round 65, and it was just extraordinary. And later I asked, and he went back to his old pink putter that he used so well in the 70s, and he hadn't used it for some years. And I asked Bruce, what was it like? What did Watson say about being reunited with this old pink putter? And Bruce said, Watson said it was like being with an old girlfriend. And I love that quote so much because it speaks to the relationship that golfers have with their putters, and it also just sort of captures the romance of golf. And, golf's turned into a numbers game, and as Brandel Chambly would say appropriately, a big data game. And it is a game with a lot of data, but beyond the data, there's a lot of charm, a lot of romance, and a lot of stuff you can't put your finger on. And Bruce really captured that in that one sentence.
Oh, Michael, so true. And in your book, To the Linksland, I love the card for the course, the way that you set up the initial part of the book and had the different chapters, part one laid out with like a scorecard, a front nine and a back nine scorecard. And that book had so much. I knew how much you had this love affair with the game, because that book is almost romantically written, isn't it?
Well, that's very nice, and it happened to be written in the first year of our marriage. My wife and I, in fact, were celebrating 30 years this year, so it was 30 years ago that we did that. But I was a sports writer on the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I took a leave from my job, and Christine did the same, and I went to Europe and caddied on the European tour and wrote about it. Then spent a summer in Scotland and falling under the spell of a Scottish teacher named John Stark. And so it was a very romantic period. It was a vagabond period. We were broke. We had no mortgage. We had no children. Just like I'm sure for you when you got on that PGA Tour in 1985, and you're always going to remember that period with a deep fondness. So yes, that was incredibly just lucky time, and I would encourage any young people who are listening, if there's something you want to get out of your system, do it while you can, so you don't regret it. You don't regret it later. Just like you did, Jay, trying to play that PGA Tour. It's hard. You made a living, and I've tried to do the same thing as a writer. It's hard, but I've made a living. But if you follow your passions, and it's one of my wife's phrases about these sorts of things is, in life you don't regret what you do, you regret what you don't do. And anyway, so we took the plunge and we dropped out of the world for really the better part of a year, and went to the European Tour in Scotland and had a great time.
That says a lot about your wife, my man, for her to go along with that plan.
That's true.
Okay, so how about the Men in Green? This book reminded me of looking at an old Rat Pack movie or something, Michael. It's absolutely some of the pictures, the black and whites, I just love it.
I know exactly what you're saying and why you would say that, and I feel that as well, particularly since two of the stars of Men in Green are Ken Venturi and Arnold Palmer, and they sort of are Rat Packers in their own way. And for those who don't know, younger listeners who wouldn't know what the Rat Pack is, it refers to the collection of Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., and how they would sort of pal around. And there was a lot of that from these tour players who came up in the 50s and the 60s and into the 70s. And it's capturing their life and times to some degree. My friend Mike Donald, who I'm sure you know, Jay, and I went around and visited some of these legends. And Venturi, especially when you speak of the Rat Pack, well, he was an acquaintance or a friend of Sinatra's, and he really sort of had that Palm Springs vibe, and wear the right coat at dinner, and know how to tip the valet guy and the maitre d' and everybody else. Just sort of the whole code, just the code of what they considered gentlemanly behavior. It's something that's lost today, but those guys really lived it. And Arnold embodied that too, with a totally different sensibility than Venturi, but he had it in spades as well. So that book does try to capture that period.
Michael, how hard is it to think about that book and think about how you just described golf and not think of the Bob Hope Classic or the Bing Crosby Clan?
Yeah, Bob. Yeah. The Bob Hope Classic and the Glenn Campbell Tournament and the AT&T when it was still the Crosby Clanbake, and a PGA Tour that was dominated by personalities, not by corporations. And I'm not saying that in an old fuddy-duddy way. I'm just saying that really as a statement of fact. The PGA Tour was dominated by personalities. So now this name will be meaningless to most people listening, but a man named Al Delsing, who would have been your father's generation, who had tremendous skill and tremendous appearance and presence. But really the reason he became a legend was his personality. And that really was the tour of that period. And even really right into the 70s when I fell into golf, the reason that Nicklaus is in a large part because of Nicklaus, and a large part is because of the personalities, beyond just the golf games, but the personalities of the men who tried to beat him and sometimes did. And of course, everybody knows about Billy Casper and Tom Watson and Lee Trevino, but it's also Hubert Green. It's also Jerry Pate, Seve Ballesteros as a young man. People who were larger than life. They were gritty. John Mahaffey, Lou Graham. I know these names are obscure to a lot of people, but they had a grit about them that was just obvious in the way that they carried themselves, the way they played, the way they swung the club, and it was very romantic. And part of what's happened in other sports, like in the NFL today, the helmets are bigger, they're often shaded, and we don't really get to know the personalities as well as we did in the Jim Brown era, say. And it changes our appreciation of the game as fans. But the nature of being a fan has changed as well. But for me, falling in love with the game in the 70s, it was really the personalities of Nicklaus and the people who were trying to beat him that really made me fall for the game.
Michael, this is kind of an off-the-wall question, but do you think with the purses growing so much in golf, do you think there's going to be this gigantic divide and almost, what's the word? I want to say the word hatred, but that's a little too strong. But the way the fans and spectators react to some of the other athletes because of some of the money they make and some of the things they do. Do you think we're going to get there with golf? There's when Mickey Mantle walked along, or Stan Musial in St. Louis, the greatest Cardinal of all time, he would walk down the street and he had this presence about him, but he was also an ordinary guy. And ball players were of ordinary size. I remember seeing. I'm sorry, just blanked here. I remember seeing Frank Robinson late in his career, and he was my height and weight. It's like, man, how do you hit all these home runs? Right.
He wasn't a big man. And he said, well, I was big for my time. Yeah, but the time has changed. Golf's been sort of fortunate in that regard that the players have largely done a good job of recognizing that the fans who come out to the tournament make their lives possible. So I'm thinking about Ricky Fowler and how he is with fans, Jordan Spieth, how he is, Justin Thomas, Phil Mickelson, certainly,
Jason
Tiger
Day.
In his own way. It's different. But so that could happen, Jay, what you're talking about, but it really hasn't happened so far. And I hope it won't happen. I think that Pro-Am round is very important to the PGA Tour, and gives the top players who play in these Pro-Ams a weekly reminder of how their bread gets buttered. And some, I'm sure, understand it better than others. But by and large, I think the players are good about it. But by and large, they also have more corporate, polite, careful, trained, controlled personalities and profiles on social media. So it's not quite as authentic and believable and as engaging, not to me, as it once was. But I don't think we're at that point that you're worried about we're getting there. But it's something to keep your eye on, because it certainly could happen. It didn't happen with the hockey players. When they started making big money, they remained very personable and very approachable. And I hope it won't happen in golf. That would be really a shame.
Okay, that's going to wrap up the front nine and the first half of the Michael Bamberger interview. But don't go away. We'll come back to the back nine, and we'll jump right on the end of that interview. And by the way, we want to shout out to the Ascension Charity Classic. We appreciate their support. We can't wait for this tournament come the end of September, early October. And, golf is going to be back in St. Louis, all because of Ascension. So come right back to the back nine. This Golf with Jay Delsing.
The 100,000-watt blowtorch for St. Louis sports, driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the 30-day return. WXOX and WXOX HD1, East St. Louis, 101 ESPN.
Are you in the market for some new clubs? Maybe a bag and the latest style of sweet new shoes? Is this the year you decide to stop listening to your buddy's advice and get some real golf instruction? If any of these appeal to you, then go to Pro-Am Golf today. Pro-Am Golf has all the latest gear from all the major manufacturers. Call Steve today at 314-781-7775 and schedule a lesson with Tom DeGrand. Tom is the best. He's been in the game for over 50 years, so you take that knowledge along with their state-of-the-art equipment, and boom, your game will get a whole lot better. Visit them at ProAmGolfUSA.com.
USA Mortgage is doing it again. Joe Sheezer and his staff have lowered rates again this month, and they will waive closing costs if you want to refinance to get cash out, lower your rate, shorten your term, or eliminate that costly, unnecessary mortgage insurance. If you are purchasing a property, they can issue a pre-approval letter within minutes. They are the largest mortgage company in the state of Missouri, and their volume allows them to quote the lowest rates. Don't waste your time with the national online brokers. USA Mortgage is employee-owned and operated right here in St. Louis. Joe Sheezer has closed over $500 million in loans in nearly 30 years in the business and over $2 million alone to Delsing's.
You're halfway there. It's time for the Back Nine on Golf with Jay Delsing. The Back Nine is brought to you by St. Louis Bank.
Welcome back. This is Golf with Jay Delsing. I'm your host, Jay. I got Pearly with me, and we are headed to the Back Nine, sponsored by St. Louis Bank. Let's just jump right back into the Michael Bamberger interview. Michael wrote for Sports Illustrated for years and now writes for golf.com. Let's talk about your new book, man. You've got the Second Life of Tiger Woods. Talk about this book a little bit, Michael.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you even know about it, Jay, because it just came out in the past week or so. I've covered Tiger first in 1995 and in some periods of his career more intensely than others. And everybody knows the broad strokes of Tiger's life. There was a tremendous biography written by two writers, Jeff Benedict and Norman Contain, and they wrote a big, thick biography of Tiger Woods called Tiger Woods that covers really everything up to his Memorial Day 2017 arrest. And I regard that as a very significant event in his life and times, because at that point, his life he could have killed himself or somebody else very easily that night. And instead, he didn't do that. He did the opposite. Well, fortunately, he didn't do that. And then in the aftermath of that, I think, this is my opinion, but I would say an opinion based on a lot of reporting and observation, that he took stock in his life in a way that he had to, really. And by taking stock in his life and changing things in his life, he was able to go on this 2-year journey that I won't say culminated, but includes the winning of the 2019 Masters. And the reason I'm wording it that way is you hope that it's still continuing right now to this day. Of course, we haven't seen much of the public Tiger Woods in recent months or this year at all, really. But you hope that's the case. But anyway, what this book is about is a really close study of where his life is and where it got to, and for him to be able to win this 2019 Masters, which is really one of the most remarkable achievements in the history of sport, I think.
Oh, I'm with you. I mean, when he came back from the, I know back surgeries, and when he came back from the fusion, and I watched him swing in his own tournament down in the Heroes Challenge, I went, oh my gosh, he's back. He's got speed in the right place. You know, he wasn't lunging and lurching at the ball. And I'm like, holy smokes, how did this happen? And it's another time where, you know, he's, I don't know if even generational athlete for Tiger is even appropriate, Michael, because had he not gone through that chasm in his life from 2009-ish or so, the Thanksgiving, for those number of years, every single record book on the PGA Tour would be his.
Oh, no question. And it's interesting, Jay, that you worded that way, because I regard really Tiger being on one path from 2009 right through the Memorial Day arrest of 2017. Even though he won a bunch of tournaments in 2013, he was Player of the Year, even though he did tremendous good works for his charity and was active in his public life in ways. But there was some very significant hiccups along the way. So, you know, you can't compare this to Ted Williams, serving as a pilot in World War II or Korea. I mean, it's totally different from that. But he did lose years and years of his prime to surgery, to personal travails, and to come back from that is a tremendous testament to the human capacity to rise, and that's what I'm trying to capture.
Well, I can't wait to read it. I just can't wait to read it, and I think the thing that I've never seen, one of the things that I know you're on this. First of all, I know that you wouldn't write this book if you didn't believe it with every fiber of your being. But when I watch him, he smiles way more than he ever did. He talks to people. It's just a different Tiger Woods.
I agree with that, and my only cautionary note would be that when you hear people say that Tiger has changed, and I would say that Tiger is changing, that Tiger is evolving, that Tiger is growing, and I don't think it's night and day. I think it's more subtle than that, and I would say that something happened to Tiger on some deep level, and I'm not pretending to know what it is, in which he has become literally more aware of the role that gratitude and empathy has to play in a person's life in order to lead an evolved life. And I think, Jay, you and I are the exact same age. I think I got you by a few months here, but the point is that if you're going to grow into middle age and old age, and you don't want to be an embittered person, you want to be a person who has relationships, deep, meaningful relationships with your kids and your close friends and your colleagues. It's really incumbent upon you to develop some kind of deep understanding of the role that empathy and gratitude plays in your life, because I think those are the starting points for a rich, fulfilling life. And I'm not saying that in a preachy way. I'm saying that just in terms of looking at my own life. And I think looking at Tiger Woods, as you and I have both done, I think it's very evident that he's doing the same thing. And I would say you can see it with his kids and with other players and with spectators and in really every aspect of his life. Well, when he was the captain on the President's Cup, and it's an exciting, fulfilling, uplifting thing to see.
You know what, Michael, for sure, when I just had Paul Azinger on the show, and we talked about the job Tiger did down in Australia, and that the modern day, the current Tiger Woods would have never been able to relate to those players like he did.
No, I agree with that. And of course, a lot of those players literally grew up on Tiger Woods, so they don't, Ernie Els and Vijay Singh and Davis Love and Phil Mickelson, they know what it's like to get beat by Tiger Woods, and they got tired of it, understandably so. This generation really was just, the John Rahms and Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth and Patrick Reed. They grew up being inspired by the life example of Tiger Woods, and now they get to play with him as both a teammate and to have him as their captain. That was a dream for them and a dream for Tiger to be able to do it. And he rose to the occasion, and they rose to the occasion, and it was a tremendous President's Cup, and the golf course, Royal Melbourne added a lot to it as well.
Oh, it's an absolute treat, Royal Melbourne is. So, Michael, let's talk a little bit about this fall Masters. So we're going to look at the second week of November to play the Masters tournament here in 2020.
Well, I think it's have you ever gotten to play Augusta National, Jay?
I have not. I've had many, many opportunities that I turned down because I wanted to earn my way into playing my first round. I wanted it to be a practice round for the, when I got a chance to earn my way in, and I never did. Well, you got to play in a bunch of other things. I hope you get to play it. I know from people who have played it that it is a totally different course in November. It can be really, really a long course because they can have a very wet fall there. It's on the tail end of hurricane season. But leaving all that aside, the technicalities of how the course is going to play and the fact that it's going to be in football season and it's going to be in Preston and all the rest, this is my biggest takeaway from the fact that they have announced that they intend to play the Masters in the middle of November. Hallelujah. It is, in other words, Augusta National is a really prudent club that has tremendous information and resources at their disposal. And the fact that they think that the country and the world is going to be a safe enough place that we can have a Masters golf tournament in mid-November, the fact that they're saying that publicly tells me that they must really think it is very, very likely to happen. And I think that's great for all of us, whether you're a golf fan or not. I know your listeners are all golf fans.
So I take tremendous encouragement in that, and I know this is a down period for all of us. None of us wants. There's no one who could possibly be liking this period. But I think, come November, we'll look at this, if we're fortunate enough to get through it unscathed, as a blip with consequences. But life will resume. And one of the things that all of us who love golf look forward to every year is the Masters. The Masters in April, of course, historically. This year, Masters is November, we hope. And I think it's just wonderful. Who it's going to favor and how the course is going to play, and all that stuff. That's just that's the fine print, that nobody ever reads.
That's the icing on the cake.
And that will unfold.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I can promise you this, Michael. I knew that the PGA Tour was hunkered down and trying to redo the back end of the schedule. But I can tell you the guys at Augusta were smack dab in the middle of that conversation with their information, their influence, and their knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think they're just a very sophisticated group of people. And even though they've gotten some things wrong over the years, they've gotten some major things wrong over the years, they've gotten a lot of things right. And, when they build that par 3 course, they know what they're doing. When they add a bunker, they know what they're doing. And when they announce that they're going to have this tournament in November in consultation with the NFL and the PGA Tour and the Ryder Cup people, the PGA America and all the rest, they know what they're doing. It's a deliberative, intelligent group of people there.
Well, it really is. Well, Michael, would you like to weigh in on what would you like to weigh in on golf? Anything, like I talked to Azinger and asked him about the distance and things like that. And where do you feel like the state of the game is? And is there anything that you're concerned about?
Well, there always is. I think golf, like everything in life, you've got to be vigilant to hold close to you that which is important. And this is a little bit of a soapbox thing for me, but I know it's going to be exactly the same for you, Jay, is that golf's starting point at the elite level has to be complete faith in the scorecards the players turn in. And you can't overstate how important that is at all. So there have been some issues in recent years, including with Tiger, including with Patrick Reed, and golf has to really double down on that. At these scorecards, we're not going to try to catch you. You're going to turn in a scorecard that is 100% and ethical. Every box is going to be filled in precisely, and we're going to trust it. And by the way, and people don't necessarily understand this, but I know that you do, Jay, it's a two-way street in golf. The golfer is expected to turn an accurate scorecard, and Big Brother is watching. People don't really understand that two-pronged system is one of the things that makes it work. And then I would say more broadly than that, and maybe this awful virus that's going around will impact this to some degree. I would love to see the casual game. Now, you don't play the casual game, Jay, but you might these days. You didn't for years, but I do. I would like to see more golf played with fewer clubs, walking, fewer than 4 players, not in carts, a faster game on a shorter course, on a browner course that's less expensive. That is golf in many other countries. That is golf in many public courses, especially in the Midwest where you are, Jay. But really all over this country. And I love Augusta National. I love the Masters, for that 1 week a year. But it sounds really a totally unrealistic image of what golf is and what golf should be. And a simpler, less expensive game with less fertilizer and less water, I think strongly would be a better game. So I hope golf will go in that direction. I think we'd have more players enjoying the game in a deeper way if we could go down that path.
Oh, I love it, Michael. Well, first of all, and before we wrap up, please tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you, how they can buy the book, where they can buy it, and things like that.
I'm extremely available. I respond to almost every email I get, as long as it's polite. And I'll just give my email address if you like, because it's right there in the book. It's it's an old-fashioned email, but it's M as in Mary, my last name Bamberger 0224 at AOL.com. People are welcome to write to me. I would love for people to say go to your library or go to a bookstore to get the book. Unfortunately, most libraries and bookstores are closed right now, but it's very, very available online through Amazon. People have been ordering it. It's had a rocky opening here. It's been a difficult time to launch a golf book, but it's available there. You can try a little sample of the book right there on Amazon, and if it's to your liking, go ahead, and if it's not to your liking, find something else. There's a lot of great golf books out there. If you're new to reading about the game, don't start with me. Start with Bobby Jones, or start with Michael Murphy's Golf in the Kingdom, or if you're interested in Tiger, there's Hank Haney's book. It's an extremely interesting book. There's the Benedict Catane book is extremely interesting. Golf has a rich history of literature, and I hope I've added a little something to it, but by no means am I the starting point or the finishing point.
Oh man, are you kidding me? You're when I do my reading to try to stay up on things, I go straight to you. I really, Michael, so appreciate your passion. It shines through in everything you say. Thanks for joining me today, and keep doing what you're
Jay,
doing,
let me
man.
conclude with this for the young people out there. Some of the guys out there will know the name Ricky Barnes. Ricky Barnes has played the tour for years. He's played in a lot of tour events. I don't know if he's won, if he has. I can't particularly remember it, but he's a big, strong, athletic guy. He's got a big, strong, athletic girlfriend, wife. I'm not sure now. I think she was a volleyball player. But anyway, when I first saw this Ricky Barnes get on tour, I said to myself, I know who this Ricky Barnes is. This is Jay Delsing all over again. The guy could play any sport. You put a stick in his hand, he's going to hit it. I don't care if it's hockey, baseball, golf, or something else, lacrosse. So when I saw Ricky Barnes, I thought of you immediately. And, Jay, it's just a pleasure to be on here with you. And, you're a golfing lifer like I am. We find a way to stay in the game and try to be meaningful. Try to say something meaningful about the game. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you so much, Jay.
All right, so that's going to wrap up the back nine and the Michael Bamberger interview. But don't go away. John and I will be back. This is Golf with Jay Delsing.
This is Dan McLaughlin, TV voice of the Cardinals. St. Louis is one of the best sports cities in the country. We also have a tremendous history of supporting professional golf. We're excited to bring golf back to St. Louis with the inaugural Ascension Charity Classic, September 28th through October 4th at Norwood Hills Country Club. Don't miss your chance to see PGA Tour champion legends. Proceeds will benefit St. Louis area youth, including the Urban League, Marygrove, the Boys and Girls Club, and more. For tickets and sponsorship information, head to AscensionCharityClassic.com.
For the last 48 years, Pro-Am Golf has been providing outstanding customer service to the greater St. Louis area for all of our golf needs. From top-of-the-line equipment to full-service club repair lessons and instructions. They now have their own retail outlet as well as state-of-the-art computers, cameras, and things to customize all of your personal club fitting needs. Pro-Am Golf carries all the major brands. They also have the latest fashion trends from Puma Golf. Whatever your needs, Pro-Am Golf will meet them and have the best customer service in the industry. Call us at 314-781-7775 or find us at ProAmGolfUSA.com.
USA Mortgage is doing it again. Joe Sheezer and his staff have lowered rates again this month, and they will waive closing costs if you want to refinance to get cash out, lower your rate, shorten your term, or eliminate that costly, unnecessary mortgage insurance. If you are purchasing a property, they can issue a pre-approval letter within minutes. They are the largest mortgage company in the state of Missouri, and their volume allows them to quote the lowest rates. Don't waste your time with the national online brokers. USA Mortgage is employee-owned and operated right here in St. Louis. Joe Sheezer has closed over $500 million in loans in nearly 30 years in the business and over $2 million alone to Delsings.
I want to thank Donahue Painting and Refinishing for supporting the show. When I was out playing golf, in my mind, I would see a picture that I wanted, and I'd try to hit the shot the way it was painted in my mind. The way you see your home is what Donahue Painting and Refinishing can make your home look like.
Grab your friends, a cold one, and pull up a chair. We're on to the 19th hole on golf with Jay Delsing.
The 19th hole is brought to you by Sniper Brand Golf.
Welcome back. This is Golf with Jay Delsing. We are headed to the 19th hole. John, what's interesting to me that jumped out about the Michael Bamberger interview, I know he wrote, for an iconic magazine for years and years and always about golf and always the interesting little quirks from his perspective. But isn't it interesting how someone like him has found a way to stay in the game, and we can so relate to each other because, you and I have loved this game forever, and we're still trying to figure out ways to stay into it, talk about it, grow it, anything we can.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I think from the early part of his story, the playing the vagabond and running around Europe and caddying over there, and the fact that he was really a good player, you can tell the passion. And you both, I love the people you have on the show, Jay, because these people also care about growing the game, and they care about the changes of the game, the integrity of the changes of the game. So I thought it was just a wonderful interview. And, I've watched you. I've ebbed and flowed with golf, and you've stayed passionate through the whole thing. And now you're doing this radio show. So you guys have a lot in common.
And you can just tell by the way that he presents this stuff that he had a blast doing it. And what Bamberger did for me was provide that perspective you don't get. You don't get a perspective. Where do you find a perspective like that? How does that work? How does that guy get out of bed and get excited about this the way he does?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, but thank goodness for it, and because that's what you need. Otherwise, I think all sports, but especially golf. Otherwise, it can be very singular, and this guy makes you think about other things.
Yeah. I will tell you, his book, Men in Green, just look at the cover, and if you're a golfer, you won't be able to not open this book and read it. It's got Arnold Palmer shaking hands with Jack Nicklaus, and it talks about, for me, that was like the golden age of the game. Where Arnold was still he had passed the torch to Jack, but he was still really, really relevant and in so many different ways. And I've said this a zillion times and probably ad nauseum for everybody, but it still reminds me, John, of the Bob Hope Classic and going out there for years and years with you and playing those small little golf courses and having all those people come out of their little condos at Indian Wells and Bermuda Dunes and stand out there and watch us. And it just, there's something about that time on the PGA Tour that was so incredibly special.
Well, it was special for us, and I like the way you guys talked about how the changes now, how the characters, the personalities of back then versus now. And that's not to say there's not great things now, but it's different, isn't it? It's a real different feel.
Yeah, it is. It's a different feel. It's impossible to not feel the money aspect of the PGA Tour now. It's impossible. It's just an entirely different. Gone are the days of people traveling together in a sense where you're in a car together. Where now they travel in private jets together and things like that. And make no mistake about it, John, I'd rather be in a private jet than in a car with 4 people. As we're hauling ass to 12 hours away. But there was just something about that time of our lives that we didn't know much better, and that was what everybody did, and that's what was on the table. And you know what? I just am grateful to be a part of it. It's just awesome.
Well, I like that part. I mean, now you think about some of the drives and the traveling, we would scoff at it, but it definitely is some of the fonder memories. I can just driving across country, for me, playing Canadian Tour, driving across Canada, interesting times. And and there's all kinds of interesting things that happen along those travels.
Oh, my gosh.
We can talk about on the radio, something we can.
Yeah, Billy Ray Brown comes to mind up in Canada. And he was a force for the entire country of Canada to be reckoned with, but we're not going to talk about that.
And he was my roommate. So,
I know he was.
I knew some of that firsthand. What a fun guy, what a good guy he is.
Yes, sir. Pearly, that's going to wrap up another show. Thanks for being with me. Neat. Man, keep playing the game, dude. It's I would say it's going to get better. I can't say that for sure, but I sure hope it does.
If he follows the advice, if he follows the advice, he'll be just fine. Just fine.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. This is Golf with Jay Delsing. Hit him straight, St. Louis.
That was Golf with Jay Delsing, brought to you by Whitmore Country Club. Tune in next Sunday for more from Jay, John, and the other pros and experts from the golf world. In the meantime, you can find all of Jay's shows at 101ESPN.com as well as at jdelsinggolf.com.